What's going on, guys? Big welcome to you all to our channel. We are Team Crushing the Meta. You are here with D-Boy, and as you can see, we are here to talk about Bruce. So, Vanguard D, the Overdress format, and if you ask me, my favorite deck is of course Bruce. It's not because how strong it is, because it's crazy good. It's also because it pretty much is Spike Brothers. And if you know me, then you know I'm a big freak of spikes, so this definitely would be the deck that I play in D. Okay, so throughout the sets we have done multiple deck profiles on Bruce, the changes of Bruce, and now we are getting to set 3. So before we talk about set 3, let's talk about the current build that I play myself. So as you can see right here, the most things that you see differently is that I play the 3 draws, some people play 2 draws, I play 4 sets orders, some people play only 3, and I maximum the amount of Bilb Dragon, and pretty much the fronts are in there. I think most people are playing fronts, but some people, as I said, are playing the 1 or 2 extra crits in the deck. Alright, so let's talk a little bit more about the deck. So the right line will still, of course, be the same. We have Bruce, we have Richard, we have Steve, and we have Matt, as they are basically your best right line. You could change the starter to have any other starter you want to, because it doesn't really matter if you have Matt or something different, but Matt, of course, yeah, it fits the theme of the deck, and of course it's beautiful. Borderless art, that's why you want to play it. When it comes to the grade 3s, of course you play the 3 copies of Bruce. You want to persona right as much as you can. Each turn you want to add the persona right and a Hell Blast to the mix, so you have the extra 20k on the front row, which will hit twice, which is crazy good. The Mayuri is also an important card to have in the deck. This is one of the best cards in Dark State. It's just so good. It becomes a powerhouse. It doesn't cost a Count Blast. It gives you 2 soul. It gives you a card in hand. It does everything that the decks wanted to do. So that's why, in my eyes, I will still play her even after set 3, which I will show you later on. As I said, the Hell Blast is an important card to have. You want to activate one each turn that you are in Final Rush. And yeah, it just gives your attacks even more power. It's just crazy. When you come to the grade 2s, we play the 4 copies of Leonard and the 4 copies of Eden. I didn't start playing Eden at 4. I started playing him at 2, then at 3, then get back to 2, and then 3. But with time, I actually find him really, really good. The early hit pressure is actually very effective against lots of decks, and also the crit whenever he restands is just good. Also, he is a beat stick by himself because he's a 15k beater. With these two, he becomes a 25-35k beater, and that's actually very, very effective, especially with the restand. He gets the extra crit, and because we play the 4 fronts, the crit actually is also very effective. Leonard, we don't have to talk about Leonard. I mean, the card is really good, very, very, very strong, and against the right decks could actually be very devastating. So you will always play 4 copies of Leonard. Beautiful SPs. Then we get to the grade 1s. Of course, we play the Perfect Guard at 4, and we play Bilb Dragon at 4. Bilb Dragon is just a very good card. It just gives you anything that you want from your soul back to your hand, and that's very effective, especially to get that persona right back. If you know me, then you know that I always have trouble with having that grade 3 in hand, and with that I don't always get Bruce, but when I get one, that's actually very good, but I want to keep recycling them. So Bilb Dragon will give you the Bruce back to your hand, and with that you could keep spare persona riding. And persona riding in this deck makes a huge difference, so yeah, you will. Alright, when we get to talk about the other great ones that you see right here, we have the wolf, or the dog, or the gear dog, or whatever you want to call him. But the Doper is actually just a very, very good card. It gives you lots and lots of power, because what people forget is that he give the extra 10k and he give it twice. Also, he goes to soul, which is definitely very good. So if you combine this card with, let's say, a Leonard or even a Mayuri, or let's say Eden, that any attacker will hit twice with that extra 10k, because he will be boosting the first attack and then he goes to soul and give the power to the other attacker, and the other attacker will attack twice with that extra 10k. So a very effective card, and it's just so easy to use. It has no cost except putting himself into the soul, which is really not that big of a deal because you kind of want the soul and you want the power on the field, so that's good. The trigger lineup, of course, we go with the 4 heals, 4 crits, 4 fronts. I do still like the fronts a lot in this deck. I started playing them even before they had the power. But the thing is with the front is whenever you get the front in the early game, like before your final rush turn, your front would not do much. And that's why I may think about taking out the front and playing just full out crits with the new set, but we will see how that would work out. The 3 draws, as I said, for me is just good. I just like discarding them with a PG or in the early game to ride, and just getting them. The damage check is of course also pretty good, and getting the front in the damage check is also very good, while getting the crit doesn't really do much. Most of the time I do like the fronts in the late game, because in the late game the fronts become more effective, and in the early game the crits are of course effective. Alright, so this is basically the deck. So how will the deck change whenever we get into the new format, and what are the cards that you actually want to keep in the deck, and what are the cards that you could take out? So first question, what are the new cards that we have in the new set? Well, we have the new crit, so that's the easy one. We have of course Derek, which is a crazy good card. We have the other order card, which is of course Tactics, so that's also a nice addition to the deck. We have the Great One with the Guard Restrict, so it's a, first of all, I didn't really think much of her, but then later on with a little bit of testing I actually found her very good. It's kind of the same as Doper, it's just so easy to use, especially with Derek. And then we also have other Great One, which is another beautiful SP. This is the card that puts 2 other Regards into the soul for a counterblast to get something else out of the soul, giving that unit and herself extra 10k. Also another interesting card. And last but not least is a very interesting Grade 3 that for a soul blast of 2 could give your front row extra 5k, and if you're on final rush you could get a crit or give a crit to the Vanguard as well. Alright, so these are the cards that you could play in the deck, and let's talk about all of them. Let's talk about all the cards that we have that are new, and just let's see which cards we want to add to the deck and which we would not add to the deck. So the first card that we want to talk about is the easiest, which is the crit. So the crit right here, what it does is basically whenever it boosts at the end of the battle, it goes to soul and give one of your unit extra 2k. That 2k doesn't really do much because it's not even a 3k. If it was a 3k, then that would do more, but the 2k is just really not much, and it doesn't really make that big of a difference, except if you are boosting anything and you give the power to the Mayuri, and the Mayuri is being boosted by an 8k, then only then that will make a change or make a difference for a 5k more for the opponent to guard. That's the only thing. But other from that, being able to put this card into your soul is actually already a big plus, because sometimes you just need that one extra soul for your boost turn, and with this you kind of get that. So it's definitely good to have these triggers which have some kind of a skill that whenever you want to use them, you could. So again, a good addition to the deck, but that would mean that you will change out whatever crit you have in the deck to have this in here. Oh, for me, I actually have I really like the art and this, everything about this card. Also, it being borderless, it having the green background, let's say, or bottom of the card. I really like it a lot. So I don't know about these crits. I understand that it has more value of playing it in it because it makes the deck better. But if you know me, you know that I play the cards that I like, and If I will not add any extra crits, then I don't think that I will play this card. But again, we'll come back to that later. For you guys, you would definitely just exchange these crits with this one, and then you're good to go. And we'll talk later about the others. Alright, next we will talk about the order card. So we have the order card right here, which is Mnemonic Tactics. Tactics is, if you think about Tactics and think about Hellblast, then the biggest difference between these two is this card soul charged like crazy. And if you want to play this card, then you will have to think twice about playing Marjorie. And also, you will have to think twice about playing the 4 copies of Derek. The thing is with me and this card, I just don't really like it that much because it's just a huge soul charge and I don't find it necessary to add in the deck. Because the Marjorie already gives you lots of soul, and adding the Derek to the deck also gives you soul. So in my eyes, there is no reason to soul charge that much. And even if you do, you need the soul basically for Derek's skill. So what you will do is you will use this card first and then go use Derek and to retire more from your opponent. On the other hand, you could also say, yo, I will use Derek first, fill up my soul, and then I will get more benefit out of this card. Then it's the same as Hellblast because he will not get into that 12 soul. And even if you do, a crit on your Vanguard is not really that big of a deal because normally that is your weakest attack. So I don't know. For me, I don't really find this card necessary to add in the deck. So I would definitely just keep playing Hellblast. I found the card actually very good. And it's just consistent, always gives you that extra call, that extra power, and the draw, which I like a lot. And as I said, that extra call, some people just forget about that, but the extra call that this card gives you because you draw a card and then you may call from your hands, actually very good because sometimes you draw the right card that you want to call front row. So again, that's good. So I will be taking this card out for now. And I will also take this for now, and we will come back to that. Alright, so we're left with these. Next card we want to talk about is the Great One. So this is, in my eyes, a very counterblast heavy card. Also, it costs you to put 2 of your Vanguard into your soul. So you would think that the nice thing to do with her is actually to combine her with Derek. But then again, you're already combining Marjorie with Derek. So if you're playing a deck that does not play Marjorie and play Tactics, then this would be the right card to play. But if you play Tactics and Marjorie and Derek in the same turn, that's a counterblast of 3 in one turn. That's, again, is also too much. So I actually do like this card, but I think the counterblast is a little bit heavy. Or they would have to say that it only costs you to put 1 Vanguard into the soul and call 1 out. That would be more interesting. But the way that it works right now, I didn't really, with my testing, I didn't really find it necessary to add it to the deck because we have better Great Ones to play. That's my opinion. So we'll take this card out as well. Now we're left with these. Of course we will play Derek. The question is, we'll play him at 4 or at 3. So that's something that we'll have to think about while building the deck. And then we have also this beautiful Grade 3 and the interesting Grade 1. So in Act ability, put this unit into your soul, give one of your Vanguards extra 2k. Then if you have 7 or more cards in your soul, then that unit or the Vanguard that they gave the ability to, when it attacks, your opponent cannot guard with Grade 1s or higher. So it's definitely very effective because that would mean that your opponent would have to guard with those Grade 0s on this unit attack or the attack that this unit gave the skill to. But there is one small problem with it, and the thing is, you need to have 6 soul before you put this card into your soul. So combining this with Derek would be effective because Derek gives you soul in the main phase already. But if you have your Marjorie as your main soul charger of the deck, then that would not work that well. The good thing about her is also that whenever you use Derek and get cards like these, that's the best thing because you could just use them and put them into your soul. You could call them, put them into your soul, and with that you basically could give this skill to something. Also, her giving the extra 2k is interesting because you could combine it as well with the crit, which also gives 2k, and with that you gain 4k, and 4k the same as a 3k when you give it to a grade 2. So again, that would be effective. So it's a very good card. If you find yourself having enough soul, you could play it, but if you don't, then again it will not be that effective. Alright, next we have the grade 3, which is another act ability. It is a Soul Blast of 2, and if I remember correctly, you give the front row an extra 5k, and if you are in Final Rush, you could also give your Vanguard an extra crit. So a Soul Blast of 2 is okay, especially if you have cards like Derek and Marjorie that could still give you soul. Even without playing tactics, this card is still good. And the thing is, giving your front row that extra 5k, and the Vanguard the crit is nice, but giving your front row that extra 5k is also very effective, because that would mean that your opponent would have to put 20k guard more on that turn for this, and it does only cost 2 soul, which is really not much. So this is a very nice tech card, but this is not a tech card. This is a card that you have to play like at 3 or 4, because you will make the deck play around this card, and you may even have to play tactics in the deck just to have more soul for this card to be active. Alright, so from all the cards that we have talked about, these are basically the 4 cards that you would want to play. So let's first start with Derek, and then later on come back and talk about how the trigger lineup would look like. So the easiest way to put Derek in the deck is saying we take out the 4 Edens and we play Derek. That's basically the logical choice, let's say. Derek is a 25k beater, just like Eden. Derek, for a cost of 1 counterblast, will basically retire at least one of your opponent's regards. Eden needs to hit for that retirement, but Derek also just gives you that stall and that calling, which is crazy, because you could at least call 1. So in my eyes, Derek is just really a good card. It's not OP, but against the right decks, this card is actually very effective. And combining it with Leonard, your opponent doesn't really have an out. If they have field, you use Leonard. If they don't have field, you could use Derek. And that's basically the combination of these two. So the first thoughts would be take Eden out to play the Derek. All right, what's the other cards that we want to add to the deck? The trigger lineup. Now we get the chance to talk about that, because we have, of course, the crit. So with adding Derek to the deck, would that mean that we need more crits and we will take out the fronts? Well, we could. I'm not 100% certain about this yet, because I tested with the crits and I tested with the fronts, and I found both builds actually good. The build that plays the crits is more of the aggressive build, but on the other hand, the skill of the crit, that it does give you the 2k and goes to the soul, didn't really make that big of a difference for me while I was testing. So I would actually just keep the fronts in there, because I just like that extra 5k as a shield value. The other question is, will you keep playing the draws, or will you take out the draws to play more crits? So that's an option as well. Again, for me, I found the draws still effective, especially in the early game, to just discard them, just easy. But the crits actually do work better in the deck. So you would say play the 7 crits or the 8 crits, and then adding just the fronts to them, and just take out the draws. Take out the draws, because again, the crits have more shield value as they are in 15k, and if you're talking about fronts, the extra 3 fronts in the deck are effective as well. And with this, you could also hit your opponent early with that 2 damage. If they don't heal, then basically they got an extra damage. While with the draw, you do draw an extra card, which is good as well, but it's less effective. So you could play just a more aggressive build and take out the draws and just play the crits. That's basically good as well. But then I would just play 3 crits and keep on the forefront, and I will keep these 2 at 4, so I will just add 3 fifth crits in the deck because it's again a beautiful SP. Alright, so we have 2 more cards that we could add to the deck, right? So we have the grade 3 and the grade 1. I'm not 100% certain again about the grade 1 yet. With my testing, I did find some situations where it was not that effective, or I couldn't really get it off, and for that reason I didn't really want to play it in the deck. But again, it's definitely very effective, especially because it's actually a win condition, because your opponent still needs to guard that attack 2 times, and they could not just PG or just put some of the grade 1s, grade 2s out of their hand in there. They have to guard with triggers, and that is definitely very, very, very effective. And you could always say, yo, D-Boy, Derek still gives you enough soul. What? Well, you don't know about that. Let's say that your opponent has 4 Rhaegars on the field, right? Or, yeah, let's say they have 4 Rhaegars, and you use Derek's skill to retire 1 more, so they have now 3 Rhaegars on the field. So you could actually look at the top 2 and make call 2. That's it. You could not do more than just that. So why would you put a less flexible card in the deck when you don't always get the option to get her off? On the other hand, some people would say, yo, but she's actually better than Dogo, so just take Dogo out to put this card in. Well, that could be an option for your opponent to have to deal with the extra 20k. Is also effective, and Dogo just is easy to get off and doesn't have any other requests except just boosting. So for me, Dogo is way more effective. He gives 28k to the field, while this card goes to soul in the main phase. So yeah, if I had to choose between Dogo and this, I would still go for Dogo. So for me, I would not play this card right away, but she could make a comeback later on, because again, this is a win condition card by itself. But if your opponent would see it and they would know how to guard against it, that's basically what they will do. They will PG your Vanguard, PG your other attacks, and keep their grade 0s for that attack. So that's also an option. So yeah, I don't know about this. I didn't find it that effective for me to have to take Dogo out for her. And then last but not least, we have the grade 3. The grade 3 in my eyes is just a really good card, and at least play one of it in the deck, because it does give you a huge value. And the thing is, I actually like to put this behind the Vanguard and then put it into the soul with the Marjorie. But it just gives the front row that extra power, gives your Vanguard the extra crit, which is also nice. But basically, the power is effective because it does give the extra 20k on the Rhaegars that will attack twice, and 5k on the Vanguard, so that would mean a 25k shield out of your opponent's hand for a Soul Blast of 2 is very effective. Sometimes also making awkward numbers for your opponent who would have to guard, and giving your Vanguard the extra crit, sometimes also effective if your opponent had the chance to heal in the early game and they are on low damage, or you have lost your over trigger. Talking about the over trigger, we didn't talk about them much, but you could also play the Cray Elemental, of course, as some people play it, but for me, this is definitely the over trigger that I will play. Okay, so if we want to play a copy of this in the deck, what will we take out? Again, the Marjorie will stay, the Hellblast will stay at 4, Leonard will stay at 4, Derek will stay at 4. So the only card that you could take out of the deck is you could take out 1 Doper, or you could take out 1 Build Trigger. One of the two. Because we are adding Derek to the deck, and we are adding 4 of him, the Counterblast of the deck becomes very heavy, And for that, you could say, yo, take out one Build Dragon to add one of these cards in there. And I will actually agree with that. So I still think that that's good. So take out one Build Dragon to add in one of these beautiful extra grade 3s in the deck. And for that, you actually made the deck. So again, tell me your thoughts about this build, because there are multiple ways to build the deck. I've seen people still play Eden in the deck, which I could agree with as well, especially for getting that crit. I've seen people that still play the draws and didn't really go for the aggressive build of having more crits and more fronts in the deck. I could see that happening as well. And I did not see that much people that try to play him in the deck. But for me, it's actually a very good card, so why wouldn't you? Alright, that's basically it for this video. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel, for liking, commenting, subscribing, and again, if you have any questions, just let us know, and we'll hope to see you in the next video. So till next time.